Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, the 11th of May. So hello to everyone that is watching this live, and hello to anyone that is catching it on record. We try and record everything and circulate it so you don't miss. So I will just share the screen. So today is what we call Crypto Basics 101, and it's our session that is intended for people that are fairly new to crypto. We have a lot of feedback that we tend to talk to loads of people that have found crypto quite inaccessible. There's lots of jargon. And obviously, if you start hitting Google, you do tend to disappear down a black hole fairly quickly. So just a quick run through of what we see as kind of the most important information. Daxi as a business seeks to be the starting point and the authority on getting people into crypto from the ground level, so people that know relatively little. There's no other exchange to our knowledge that invests so heavily in education. So we very much want to be the chosen company in terms of education, always free, stacks of it online, always at sensible times of day, and huge amounts of resources, whether it's these webinars or Ask Me Anything questions or big online meetups, and the huge amounts of resources that are available via our website, including quite a lot of free ebooks. So a quick disclaimer, the information that I'm going to share is not investment advice, financial advice or trading advice. Rather, it's a general background to crypto and a general background as what Dacxi does as a business. So in the next 15-20 minutes, I want to cover the basics of crypto, how you can make money out of crypto and how people using our platform are achieving that. What to avoid, plenty of horror stories in the industry, which we acknowledge. Where Daxi feels that we're at in the investment cycle and all the kinds of analysis that we're putting out right now, and of course, how you can get involved if you're looking to make your first steps into crypto. So I'm just going to run through a couple of slides that we've been using a lot to talk about our current financial predicament, both in the UK and globally. You'll hear myself and my fellow presenters at Daxi, Andrew and Ed, talking a lot about this. So we look a lot about what's happening economically from a global perspective. In the UK, coronavirus saw us wipe pretty much 25% off the FTSE 100 almost overnight. They initially anticipated that coronavirus had probably caused around $5 trillion worth of damage. It's now more likely that $9 trillion worth of wealth has been wiped off globally. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the FTSE 100 is a great health check on the UK economy. It is a great overview of the top 100 traded companies in the UK, and it's a great way of seeing what's going on more broadly in the economy, and of course many vanilla financial products, be it savings, pensions, investments, are based on it. So obviously not great news to have seen 25% wiped off overnight. You'll see a lot more analysis around this in the crypto and coronavirus sessions that we run. We've already done a couple. We've made some fairly aggressive predictions when we started running those, the immediate aftermath in mid-March. I'm very privileged to say that a lot of the assumptions we made and a lot of the predictions we made have come to be correct. So lots of people that use the Dacxi platform are seeking to swap some of their cash into crypto. I was doing some homework on Money Supermarket recently, obviously a very well-known British retail website. And obviously interest rates in the UK are at a historic low. We're at 0.1% with the Bank of England, which is the record low interest rate since the Bank of England was first created a couple hundred years ago. And of course, we're expecting some fairly rampant inflation as a result of the recent coronavirus recession. So of course, more importantly, if you can get 1.3% on a fast interest savings account, but inflation's at 1.8, of course, everything around you is going up faster than the interest you're getting on your money. And so essentially it's costing you money to leave it in the bank. More importantly, there are some analysts talking right now about negative interest rates in the UK. So certainly in my lifetime, that's not something I've seen. And the idea of having to write the bank a check for looking after my money, even worse, it being funds that they can then loan out, even worse, they can loan out every pound I leave in the bank a couple of times over. There's a real sense, and certainly Daxi has put a lot in the mainstream press recently about a real sense that the traditional financial infrastructure is not fit for purpose. So again, lots of people that use our platform seeking to switch some of their cash with a sense of just wanting to have something outside of the traditional ecosystem. The other thing we see a lot of analysis around, aside from the stock market being at a record high, particularly with all the printing of money, which is happening, of course, right now in all the major economies, is what's going on with house prices. So I think particularly in the UK, we enjoyed a good couple of decades where over an extended period, house prices kept going up. And it was often said that every 5 to 7 years, property prices would double. And that was pretty much true until the general financial crash of 2008. Property in the UK took a massive hit, didn't really recover till 2015, early 2016. And since then, that growth has been pretty lethargic. So of course, right now, yields are at a low. I think there were lots of people 10 years ago that were really seeking for buy-to-let property to replace the income from their day job. And of course, buy-to-let deposits are fairly hefty, particularly where I'm sitting right now in the southeast, 50, 60,000 pounds typically to get involved in rental property. And for most of the people using the Daxi platform today, they're probably looking to put something closer to 5 or 10,000 pounds on the platform and get a return. The other thing, of course, is that property is in a little bit of a tough spot, particularly with the recession. I was reading recently that a poll of 1,000 renters showed that around 40% of tenants will struggle to pay their rent in the coming months due to the recession, which of course has a knock-on effect on landlords. So for that reason, there's been a huge amount of interest around crypto. We maintain that crypto has been the best performing asset on the face of the planet, both in the last 12 months and since coronavirus. Just before we came on air, and obviously these figures are correct as of the 11th of May. So just before I came on air at about 8 o'clock in UK time, I was looking at the month-on-month prices. Bitcoin has gone up 27%, Ethereum's gone up 19%. And if you compare those to the more traditional investments, the FTSE 100 has seen 3.75% of growth, and gold has gone up nearly 1.5%. So a lot of talk right now, particularly with the recession, that crypto has really held its own. There's a lot of talk around it finally proving itself. So some interesting facts there. Firstly, that it's outside the traditional markets. A lot of the very big investors are now using crypto, particularly what we call the blue chip coins, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, as a hedge. So it's great to see this uncoupling from those traditional markets, whether it's gold, cash obviously isn't doing well right now, traditional stocks and shares, or precious metals. So it just gives something a little bit outside of that ecosystem. And there's also a lot of talk around the blue chips being a better way of conveying value. So you'll see an awful lot of analysis around Bitcoin coming to replace gold. You'll see it referred to as either digital gold or a better version of gold, which of course is very interesting because if only a few percent of the market that uses gold right now to convey value switches particularly to Bitcoin, we'd see a 10-fold increase in prices. So I suppose really the huge target for Bitcoin investors would be $100,000 per Bitcoin. And obviously that's a real substantial gain. And of course, around the halving, which is due imminently at the time of this recording, you'll see a huge amount of analysis that there is an expected huge surge in Bitcoin pricing. And for that reason, many of our platform users are looking to invest in those blue chip coins and hold them. So unusually as an exchange, we are not focused on trading. The people that use our platform are not looking at daily, making trades daily. They're not speculators, rather they're folk that are looking for a short to medium term hold and looking to make substantial profits from that. And we put out a huge amount of analysis around that. If you haven't already seen our very popular ebook, which is called The Crypto Boom, please get hold of it. We've also put out an ebook around the Bitcoin halving. Today is Monday. We'll also be having a very large online event on Wednesday, during which we'll be interviewing the writer of that Bitcoin halving report. So huge amounts of analysis around Bitcoin versus gold. And I think, you know, when we were having this conversation 3 to 6 months ago, it was fairly academic and speculative, particularly during the coronavirus. Those blue chip cryptos have recovered harder, faster and better than traditional vanilla investments. And more importantly, we're very much seeing particularly Bitcoin being used instead of gold and being used really as a quote safe haven unquote for people that are looking for safety in a falling market. So a brief explanation of blockchain. I personally get quite frustrated when people talk at length about blockchain and make it sound super complicated. Blockchain has been around for a number of decades. It'd be fair to say the academics that first came up with it probably didn't really see an obvious market, nothing worse than a technology that hasn't yet found its home. And you'll see now from this graphic from Forbes that blockchain really is a technology which is here to stay and very much established. So huge amounts of use cases, whether it's in pharma, logistics, you see an awful lot of it around retail and e-commerce. I've personally been involved in a health tech business which uses it, and obviously huge amounts of very obvious use cases in financial services and banking. So blockchain is really just a new type of database. Traditionally, we saw databases held on a server and people would ping the server for information. With blockchain, that information is held across the users, and you'll sometimes hear that referred to as distributed ledger technology. So blockchain very much accepted, a very stable and present technology, and of course blockchain underpins the cryptocurrencies that you see out there. So I think as a business, we very much talk about waves of disruption and waves of adoption. One of the things I get to do as part of my day job is I get to meet people that bought into those cryptos 3, 4, 5 years ago. And if you hear Andrew talking, he'll talk about his career in crypto over a long number of years. And I think a lot of the people that we talk to today, frankly, would not have become involved in cryptocurrencies that long ago. They saw them as unproven. And I think when we look at those waves of adoption, we talk very much about the crypto boom, having this huge 10x of prices based on those institutional investors getting involved, and really crypto is becoming very much an established and mainstream concept. And I think it's a very fair comment to ask, is crypto real? You know, for people that are purchasing, whether it's £100 worth of crypto or £1,000 worth of crypto or £10,000 worth of crypto, it's a very sensible question to ask, is it real? And of course, can I either sell it when I need to, or indeed can I spend it? And this is why really when you get to talk to people that are into crypto, they tend to be somewhat evangelical about its adoption. So one of the things I like to look at is some of the world's biggest payment companies, and I also like to look at some of the world's biggest retail businesses. So you'll see that MasterCard is working on crypto wallet projects. PayPal, which is active in 200 countries, has applied for patents in this area. Visa, you can actually pay in crypto right now via their relationship with Coinbase, and they've invested in funding various crypto startups. eBay last year expressed a desire to include Bitcoin as a method of paying on their platform. And you can use via Fold cryptos right now at Amazon, Starbucks, and Uber. So I tend to ask myself, these are some of the world's biggest retail businesses and payment businesses. They're not adding these technologies to their platforms for the love of it. They're looking to do it because they know that these currencies are the future. And one of the analogies I often use is, I remember 10, 12 years ago, I had this BlackBerry, and I was probably one of my first in my circle of friends to get a BlackBerry. And I got a new job and I got this crazy phone that would take emails. And I spent about a month telling all my girlfriends that I had a new Mulberry. And they're like, but that's a handbag. No, I'm sure it's a Mulberry. No, you're right, it's a BlackBerry. And the idea that, 10, 12 years later, you'd have a smartphone that would hold all your banking, or your contacts, or your email, or your health and fitness stuff, education apps, you name it, you'll find it on a smartphone. And you look at the rise of that technology, I don't think I know anybody in the UK through business or social networks that doesn't have a smartphone. So I suppose a really good way of looking at blockchain and the cryptos is a technology which is a march of progress. And certainly from my perspective and all the research that we do as a business is very much here already and here to stay. And a good example of that is some of the work that's been done at central bank level. So the central banks, of course, are the banks of each country. They set the interest rates and they're responsible for our treasury. So the World Economic Forum last year, which is where they meet every year in Davos, they have all the top political leaders and the big business leaders, and they meet to talk about the global economy. And it's important to understand the argument for crypto is not about what's happening in the UK or happening in Asia. It's about a global infrastructure that moves wealth and moves value in a more efficient, cheaper and fairer way. So of course that has attracted some interest, and the World Economic Forum reported last year that blockchain and distributed ledger technology does solve problems. And one of the things we talk about is that phrase a lot, solves problems. If crypto doesn't have use cases and doesn't do something cheaper and better, it simply won't catch on. But as you can see, a number of central banks like the Bank of England and the European Central Bank have got active blockchain projects. And China, probably at the forefront of that, is looking to digitize its currency fairly shortly. And if you look at the Bank of International Settlements, which is the organization for the central banks, they quoted that 80% of the members they surveyed are working on digital currencies. So even if you don't personally become involved in crypto, it is likely this technology will be in your life, albeit unknowingly, in the relatively near future. So when we look at all those big institutional players coming to the marketplace, one of the things that we say as a business is that fairly early on, most of those investors were smaller and they were quite speculative. Now you see the really big players coming to the marketplace. And that's been enabled by some of the big infrastructure businesses getting involved and, of course, institutional grade exchanges. So some of these businesses on the current slide are very active in saying that they're involved in blockchain. New York Stock Exchange, Citi and JP Morgan, of course, are tier one banks. BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager in terms of assets under management, is very active in blockchain. DTCC, which is by a long way the highest value processor in the world, is again using blockchain. A good example would be Bitfinex, which managed to move 1.1 billion worth in Bitcoin, which at the time, fairly recently, a couple of weeks ago now, was the largest transaction to date on its network, and that cost less than $1. So just to focus, if you can move $1.1 billion worth of value for 68 cents, that of course is a valuable technology. And this is all information, if you start doing some research and looking online, you will pick up. So I just wanted to show you a graph. I try not to put too many graphs in, but a graph that we released probably a month, maybe a month and a half ago now, as part of an ebook called Crypto Boom. If you haven't got it already, I would highly suggest you take a trip to our website and get a copy. It's totally free. It's a 10 or 15 minute read. And this is one of the graphs that's in there, and it's the pretty much the life cycle of Bitcoin. And you can see, of course, there's volatility in that market. It's important to understand those cryptocurrencies tend to be fairly volatile. And in that report, we argue that there is a substantial boom coming called the fifth boom, and that is motivated by those institutional players coming to the table. So you can see that there is a number of booms. Very often after that, there is a correction. But of course, after each crash, there is another high, which is at a greater point than the previous one. So I think, we really feel as a business when we're putting out analysis, particularly when you look at those daily traded volumes, it's a hugely valuable and sought after asset. And we are very confident that fifth boom is coming. We've been really privileged to be very often quoted in the press, whether it's trade press in terms of fintech, crypto, or mainstream press. We're talking about our various predictions for prices. So look, I think we've probably answered the question why crypto and why so many people, Daxi included, are so enthusiastic for it as an asset class. There are huge amounts of cryptocurrencies. There are well over 5,000. That number is increasing literally daily. But we are truly focused on what we see as the blue chip cryptos. They account for at least 60% of daily traded volume. Often that's in excess of 70%. So I was looking at some figures a few weeks ago, $35 billion worth of Bitcoin traded that day, Ethereum 18 billion, Litecoin 4 billion. So we're very focused on those markets we know are desirable and liquid, and that those institutional investors have shown interest in. So I think, not all cryptocurrencies are created equal, and particularly if you're going to start doing your homework around which of those to get involved with, those are the three that we're truly enthusiastic for. But it's very important to look in more detail at those use cases. So a quick introduction to Daxi. We are a digital asset exchange that allows you to buy, hold, and exchange crypto. Unusually, we are not for traders. We are very focused on those short to medium term investors that are holding. We're licensed in Europe and have a UK office. And we're the only exchange that focuses on education and community. We have our own community coin called the DACC coin. We have a great presentation called the Daxi ecosystem. If you haven't sought that out, I highly recommend that you do. And that talks a lot more around our plans to be in crowdfunding. So we intend to be in the short to medium term a crowd crypto business, which is the purpose of our DACC coin. That's shown huge gains. We've seen about 300% growth over a period of about a year. And the DACC coin still maintains a strong level of interest, even in, of course, what is a huge global recession. So our intention for the business as a whole, we're looking to list Daxi on the London Stock Exchange in the near future, and that's something that our founder has achieved in another sector with 2 other businesses. There is some crypto business on the LSE, but to my knowledge, we'll be the first exchange to list. So as you can see, a really exciting time to be part of Daxi. I'm very conscious that the world is in a tough place right now. We've had record months, we've had record weeks in the recent couple of months. We're hiring people, and it's great for putting out all the industry analysis and news about Daxi as a business, which is good news, which I think in the current environment is really important. And as Hugh rightly says, we're very close to halving. So in terms of timing, people using the platform right now is great. So one of the things that's really crucial if you're looking to get involved in digital assets, there's 2 ways of storing them. You can store them on kind of a little USB gadget. That then depends on you not losing it in the outer recesses of your handbag, which would probably happen to me, or losing your passwords. I'm not sure I am a member of a website where I haven't had to reset my password at some point. So for Daxi as an exchange, we cater for people that want to store their assets online in a safe, secure and easy way. And if you look at the Mozilla Observatory, that will give you an independent security rating on any website in the world on a live basis. To my knowledge, we are the highest rated exchange. We have an A+ rating. I will share the website in the chat. If you're listening to this on Listen Again, just Google it. It's truly eye-watering to put mainstream UK high street banks through that website. For my banking personally, most of what I use on a day-to-day basis outside of Daxi rates between F for a worst case scenario and B for some of those banks which were more digitally focused. So obviously a key consideration if you're at the start of your journey in terms of looking at a platform to get involved with. So Daxi as a business, we have 2 separate opportunities via the platform. The first is the blue chip bundle, and that's very much focused on people that don't particularly want to do their homework. And it can take, weeks to look into it, the various coins and which ones are the best ones to get involved with, which ones have the best use case. So as I mentioned, we are focused on those blue chip cryptos, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And of course, DACC, which is our community coin, which currently comes with an incentive for people that are buying the bundle. We also have, as I mentioned, our community coin, which has performed extremely well in the previous year. For those people that just want to buy the DACC coin, which is our community coin on its own, they're able to do that as well. So the platform is super simple to use. We have a minimum entry level of £100. We have many people that use the platform just to get a feel for it, often by putting £100 to start with until they feel truly comfortable with it. And I think it's worth saying that bundle is particularly popular with people that are looking for a bit of a diversification of the coins that they're in. And that has performed pretty well. This slide is a week out of date now. So the bundle has outperformed Bitcoin substantially. There's a 100% increase of those clients that came into bundle. And of course, the DACC pack has far excess done even better. So I think just some things to consider if you're looking at what coins to get involved with. So look, a very quick comment about the buying process. One of the reasons that Daxi has done well as a business during the coronavirus recession is that we have a purely online and digital journey. So you're actually able to set up your account purely online from the privacy of your own home without leaving your living room and wearing your slippers. So we are required under the FCA to do what's called AML and KYC, which is the anti-money laundering and know your client regulations, which essentially means you have to provide a photographic ID and a proof of address within the previous 3 months. And that can be done online via uploading copies. And once your account is funded and Daxi buys coins within your account, you're able to sit back and enjoy. And it's a very user-friendly experience. It looks very much like a banking app. So this session is intended to be very much an introduction to crypto. We update it regularly, so we try and always come up with new research and new information that's coming out. We very much hope that you will engage with the learning. We very much promote people embracing that. Like I say, we have huge amounts of resources online. The Crypto Boom ebook. We are doing a session on Wednesday about the Bitcoin halving. If you're not necessarily aware, there is a big fundamental change coming to Bitcoin, which is the reward for those people that are involved in mining, which isn't something that Daxi as a business does, is about to halve. That is widely anticipated across industry analysis to have a strong effect on prices going up. And on Wednesday, we'll be online discussing that in more detail. We have a great blue paper that talks about the use case for DACC, which is our community coin, which has made some phenomenal gains recently. We have lots of online events that you can find recorded, whether they're around coronavirus or the Daxi ecosystem, or the sessions we have with our founder, which are Ask Me Anything. We have daily meetups in some parts of the business. My colleague Andrew in Australia holds a daily meetup for his boys and girls. In the UK, I talk to most of my team daily, so please do get more information from whoever it was that suggested you look at Daxi. So look, I think I want to leave you with one final thought. I want to shout out came from In Bitcoin We Trust, but I think it very much applies to crypto more broadly. We are very conscious that the world is changing a lot right now. I think even the last couple of months, crypto has made a huge gain in terms of how accepted it is. It's part of the zeitgeist, it's part of the conversation. I personally came from an investment banking background and was getting very disillusioned with some of that infrastructure. But I think the more you learn about crypto, the more you understand what it can offer to our global infrastructure and what it's trying to create in terms of something a bit simpler, fairer, and more streamlined. And as I said, once you start looking at it in more detail, you'll understand why the people that are passionate about it, people like Daxi, are truly evangelical. So look, I'm presuming this presentation is probably quite early on in your crypto journey. I wish you all the best for finding out more, and hopefully this has provided a good starting point for educating. So look, thank you very much for listening.